Welcome to Pro Football, first 50 years, where we take the past and we bring it back to life. I'm strictly talking the first 50 years, your 1920 to 1970. I mean, you can go online, and especially if you're going to check out a game from like the 20s or the 30s. Obviously you can find a box score, who won, who lost, who scored a touchdown, how far a field goal was someone kicked, what the attendance was, where the game was played at. You can even find starting lineups for each team. But exactly what happened during the game? Well, thanks to old newspaper articles, we get to take a little bit of a deeper dive into each and every game during the first 50 years of professional football. Little news flash here for you. Ain't no fancy videos here, nothing like that. All there is you and me for the next 30 to 60 minutes. So if that's all right with you, let's get on. And today's game, exhibition game, but we're going out to Utah, Ute Stadium. You say what? Huh? You say the Utes? What's a Ute? Excuse me, Your Honor. The two U's. Never seen the movie My Cousin Vinny. I highly recommend it. New York Giants versus the San Francisco 49ers at Ute. Ute? What's a Ute? Out Salt Lake City, Utah. Exhibition game September 19th, 1959. Now, this would be the sixth of six exhibition games for each one of these days. Six. They played a grand total of 18 games. Now, actually, some teams, I keep mentioning all these exhibition games. Few teams actually played 7 preseason games. I mean, they played 12 regular season games and 7 preseason games. I mean, it's crazy. Absolutely, I would never. These guys are making $800 trillion a year now. They're not putting them out on the field for 7 preseason games now. That one of those guys gets injured in a preseason. But oh my, how things have changed. But this game, let me tell you, let's not can never say that they don't love their football out in Utah. I'll never say that. They got some very good coverage of this game. Some of those newspapers did a very nice job of covering this game. One of the problems, obviously, is the exhibition games, especially when the games are being played all over the place. They're played at nighttime. Exhibition time. There's obviously baseball is still king back then. So it wasn't always a ton of coverage on some of these exhibition games. During the regular season, it was a lot better coverage, but some of them, there wasn't a whole lot of coverage. But this game here, really, really good coverage. Both these teams here, had hopes. Certainly had hopes for the 1959 season. The Giants obviously went to the championship game in 58. The Giants would wind up the season in 1959 with the best record overall in the NFL. Let's take a look. Take a little gander, shall we, at the Giants. The Giants would, hard to break it to you, but the Giants would win this game. But so the Giants would wind up with a 3-3, exhibition record. The 49ers, after losing this, would be 2-4, I do believe. We'll check in just a second. Once again, it's only exhibition. But you see here, the Giants, yes, they would win this one, and it would be 3-3. But once again, it's only exhibition. But then the Giants would, only lose 2 games during the regular season. They would get blown out by the Eagles in Philadelphia, and they would lose a tough one to Bobby Lane and the Pittsburgh Steelers, 14-9 in New York. Bobby Lane scored through a touchdown pass with about a minute to go in the game. I think it was like a 45-yard touchdown pass to Tom Tracy with like 45 seconds to go in the game, and they beat the Giants 14-9. So, I mean, once again, it was a very, productive, positive season for the Giants. Obviously did help them when they got to the championship game, but they got to the championship game for the second straight season. And, if you're going to lose, they lost to a very good Baltimore Colts team. It is what it is. And this is a very good time to be a Giant fan. The Giants went to the championship game in 56. 58, 59, 61, 62, 63. After 63, the team fell off the cliff and into the abyss and erupted, exploded, and took a long vacation from 1964 to 1980. They only had 2 winning seasons. On the other hand, the 49ers, this was I don't know. Where are we at here? Bam. Good and disappointing, shall we say. Now you see what we got here. The loss. Yeah, so they were 2-4, but once again, it's only exhibition, right? But good because they finished at 7-5. Very tough division. Now that you got, newsflash, 1959, Vince Lombardi was coaching the Packers. And now all of a sudden, of course, the Packers are good. Packers finished 7-5. The 49ers finished 7-5. The Bears finished 8-4. And the Colts, the defending champions and the soon-to-be crowned 1959 champions, finished 9-3. Western Division was very, very tough. So 7-5 overall, it was, positive, right? But it was a little on the disappointing side, considering the fact that they were 6-1 at one point. Right? They lost a 1-point game here to the Packers, right? They beat the Eagles, then they beat the Rams, who I even beat the Rams. I mean, the Rams were horrible that year. I beat them 21-3, so just kidding. The Rams are not very good. Then they lost on the road to the Packers, Vince Lombardi, who was being a very tough team. They lost a 1-point game. Then they beat the Lions, who were not very good that year either. But then they beat the Bears, they beat the Lions again, and then they beat the Rams. I mean, they beat some bad teams. But they were 6-1 at one point. 5 games ago, they're 6-1. They had a 2-game lead over the Colts, who were 4-3 at that particular point in time. And, things were looking good. I mean, they did have a very difficult closing schedule, as you'll see here, right? They played the Bears, they played the Colts twice, they played the Packers again, and then they played the Browns. So, who actually wound up being the only team that they wound up beating was the Browns. But so they had to play the Colts twice, the Bears again, so it was a very difficult closing schedule, but they were 6-1. And they lost 4 of the last 5, and they finished at 7-5. So, but I mean, they were 6-1, 2-game lead over the Colts, and they fell apart. Kind of, I don't know, in a little bit of a way, a little reminiscent of how they fell apart in 1957. Once again, I'm going to go back to if you've ever seen, once again, the movie My Cousin Vinny, I highly recommend it. At the end of the 57 season, the San Francisco 49ers and the Detroit Lions, their record at the end of the season was identical. If you've seen the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. But so they had to have a playoff. The playoff game was played at Kezar Stadium in San Francisco. San Francisco took a 24-7 lead at halftime. They kicked the field goal in the third quarter. So they were up about halfway through the third quarter. They were up 27-7 at home. Whoever won that game went to the championship game and would have had home field advantage and would have hosted the championship game. Well, the Lions would go on and basically the last quarter and a half to ramble off 24 unanswered points, come back and beat the 49ers 31-27, a very heartbreaking loss. Even back then, it's always about throwing and blocking and tackling and running. It's always the same, but it's a little different than nowadays. Nowadays, I forgot what year it was, but the playoff game, Josh Allen ran in for a touchdown. I think that put the Bills up by 3 points with 13 seconds to go. And that's all Patrick Mahomes needed. He completed 2 passes and they kicked the field goal. 13 seconds to get in the field goal. Wasn't like that really so much back then. It took time to score, and a lot of it also was back then is that when after a kickoff, when the referee would spot the ball, he would blow his whistle. This clock would start. So it was things have things changed a little bit, But so, I mean, that was very, very disappointing for the 49ers. But the 1959 season was obviously a little disappointing too. 49ers always seemed to have a very good offense. And there were at times where their defense let them down, or then there was other times where their just offense just sputtered as well too. I mean, they had some good players. They had some good players on offense and defense. They were just never able to get it all together. Any one particular time, it took them till the 1981 season. I mean, they made the playoffs in 70, 71, and 72, and all 3 years they got knocked out by the Cowboys. But it took them to 1981 until they finally got everything all together. But anyway, as we say, this is a preseason game. It was played in Salt Lake City, Utah, at Ute Stadium, home of the University of Utah. At the time, it was called Ute Stadium. The name changed since. We'll check that out right now. Let's go to Wikipedia, and we'll check out Ute Stadium. All right, let's see here. Got 13,000 tabs open up here, so let's see here. Share screen, Wikipedia. It's called. Well, it changed its name to Robert Rice Stadium, but it was called Ute. Robert Rice Stadium was an outdoor athletic, since it's been knocked down, but outdoor athletic stadium in Salt Lake City, Utah, located on the campus of the University of Utah. Originally opened in 1927 as Ute Stadium. It was the home of the Utah Utes football team, later renamed Robert L. Rice in 1972 for a good reason. It was almost completely demolished after the 1997 season to make way for the Utes' current home, Rice Eccles Stadium. I'm not exactly sure if I'm saying that right, which occupies the same physical footprint. So they knocked it down, and they built the stadium there. I mean, obviously, it's just seeing it on TV from time to time. It's a beautiful stadium. All right, there we go. History. After a record crowd came to the Utes' previous home, Cummings Field, the city of Utah played Utah State on Thanksgiving Day 1926, a drive began for a larger and more modern stadium, while the State House unanimously approved a loan from the state in order to build a new stadium. The state Senate adjourned before taking it up. To get around the problem, the U of U, you get that? Formed a stadium trust and issued tax-free bonds for the new stadium. The stadium was also funded in part by selling tickets to 2 home games for the next 10 years. Total cost came to $133,000. The stadium, originally named Ute Stadium, opened in 1927 with a seating capacity of 20,000. The first college football game was a 40-6 Ute victory over Colorado Mines. That I think it was called the School of Colorado Mines on October 1st. It was dedicated 3 weeks later on October 22nd with a 20-13 victory over Colorado. On hand was Crown Prince Gustav Adolf of Sweden. Originally, the stadium was built on timber and concrete with earth fill. For 20 years, a giant pile of dirt stood at the north end zone. It was basically just kind of like, you want to take a look at some of the pictures that they have. There's not a lot of actual footage per se, but there are pictures of the stadium. So there's a dirt pile in the north end zone. In 1947, 10,000 seats were added to the north end zone, turning the stadium into a horseshoe. After the 1971 season, health club pioneer Robert L. Rice donated $1 million toward the stadium's first major facelift. 2,500 seats were added in the south end zone, and the bleachers were replaced with chair-back seats. Very nice. The old grass surface was replaced with AstroTurf. Not a fan of that. The dressing rooms were also remodeled, and the running track was removed. The renovated stadium was dedicated in Rice's honor with the start of the 1972 season. 1982, the field was lowered 9.5 feet, and new seats were built along the sidelines and on the south end. After the 94 season, the turf was replaced with sport grass, a natural grass surface grown on top of a layer of artificial turf. There's a joke. Put in grass in there. I can't stand it. I'm an old fart. I can't stand artificial turf. Football is meant to be played outside in the weather elements on grass. And here's a picture right here. Stadium is photographed in 1929 when it was still known as Ute Stadium and prior to any additions. Right, so you can see, right? It's kind of, but see, it's how weird, right? I kind of in a way, it's just like, I mean, you can see, right? They love their football out there. Ain't no denying that. You see all the people. I'm not sure if it's sold out back. It looks like it might be empty back here. But they love their football over here. Ain't no denying that. But you can see here, it's just like there's like nothing. It's like they kind of forgot this part of the stuff. Maybe they ran out of money. I don't know. Here we go. Several pro football preseason games were played at the Ute Stadium. 1947, the All-American Football Conference. The Dodgers beat the Rockets. Rocket Man. 1951, the Cardinals beat the Rams. Hey, check this out. September 19th, 1959. Imagine that. The Giants beat the 49ers. Who would have thunk it? 1963, the St. Louis Cardinals, because 1959 was the final season that the Cardinals were in Chicago. 1960, they moved to St. Louis. So in 63, the Chicago Cardinals beat these very same 49ers. 64, the Vikings beat these very same 49ers. 65, the AFL got on the action. Denver Broncos beat the Raiders. And 1970, the Broncos beat the Boston Patriots, because they were the Boston Patriots up until 1970. 71, they changed. But and Salt Lake City was awarded the Olympics. It's all kinds of, what do we got here? So it was never, what I'm saying? I mean, you're looking here, I mean, attendance records, 36,000, So. But of course, it's Utah. It's not like, downtown New York City or nothing like that, but once again, they love their football there. So, all right, so let's say take a few other pictures here of the stadium, and then we'll dive into a little bit of pregame action here. Share the screen. There we go. I said, there's really not. I mean, there are some pictures. This one's funny. I got to show you this one. I was getting a kick out of this one here. There's a program here. Okay. Now here we go. Ute Stadium, November 21st, 1959. So this program was about 2 months after this game was played. But this was Utah State versus Utah. And this is from eBay. I think Utah had 35 and Utah State had 21. I guess that's what these means here. But it's a very, very nice program. But if you look down there, this is funny. Whoops. Oh. Hold on. Let's see. Sharing this. Okay. Can we get this even bigger? Not screwing this up? I guess not. So I'm going to go back. Okay, here we go. Oh, it did it again. Now we're going to go down here then. Whoops. It's not going to. Okay. All right, let's try this again here. Now, just trying to show you right here. Okay, here. This is funny. Let me screw this up. So this guy here, I guess maybe this is the Utah player. I'm not sure. This guy here in the blue made a dive at his feet, so he jumped up in the air over him, and so he's got the ball. He's like, "Ah!" He's got his war face on. He's getting ready to run down the field and all that stuff. And I'm like, "Jeez, it did it again." I hate when this happens. Meanwhile, this guy's dove at this guy, so his face is implanted into the turf, and he's got his arm wrapped around this dude on the sideline here. Now, is he a cheerleader? What is he? I don't know. Oh, he's got a camera here. So I guess he's a photographer. This guy's a photographer here. So you got like 37 photographers on the sideline. But this guy here, face planted into the dirt. This is on the program of all things. And he's trying to tackle the photographer. He missed this guy, and he's grabbing the photographer's leg here. I seen that. I'm like, oh, that's some funny stuff. All right. But there's really not a lot of like pictures. There's this one here. Once again, Robert Rice Stadium. Right. This looks like a much more modern than like in 1959. But you can see here, I'll show you. Here we go. Right here, same thing. Right? This is like from the other view. You got the road here, and then back here is like an empty, it's just empty. So they got the nice horseshoe, a beautiful, beautiful looking stadium. You know, any I'm sure anywhere. I mean, if you like here, right? That Utah, I mean the mountains or whatever in the background there. Just sorry, dude. I got my dogs playing at my feet. Beautiful, absolutely freaking beautiful. I love it. You know, but you can see here, you got the roadway right here, and then you guys like nothing. You know, it's like we got all the parkings over here, so you can see how long this is with the track and everything. Just very, very long stadium. And then, of course, a lot of other stuff I was able to find was just a lot of, this one, Colorado State at Utah program, California and Utah. The program 1964. I love those old programs. They're cool looking. I mean, a lot of programs. My goodness. The one problem I had was I typed in like Ute Stadium or Robert Rice Stadium, and one of the things that popped up was Rice Stadium, which is obviously not the same. So I'm guessing this is the new. I mean, I'm not much for this. I like, I'm sure this is like artificial turf here. I like grass, but it's outdoors. I mean, stadium's a beautiful, beautiful stadium. But so I'm saying, so there's not a whole heck of a lot of, pictures. Once again, here's that same picture that they showed you there. Like you got the nice, right? Then you got the goalpost here, and then you kind of like, hey, there's nothing here. Let's see. I think that might be pretty much about it. Like I said, a lot of everything else I was getting, I typed in Robert Rice Stadium. What popped up here was Rice Stadium. Rice Stadium is an American football stadium located on the campus of Rice. That's not all I'm looking for, but so it wasn't a whole heck of a lot going on there. As far as photographs and all that, but a very nice stadium. Just didn't hold a lot of people. So let's get a little bit of pregame here. We're going to go first here. We're going to go to the Salt Lake Tribune. September 19th, 1959, of the Salt Lake Tribune. Share the screen, September 19th. Salt Lake, okay, here we go. It's got 2 pages to this here. I think it's the one that has the pictures of the teams on it. Yeah, here we go. Nice writing. Look at that. Look how beautiful that is, huh? So here we go. Hey, the offense and the defense of both teams. I mean, they had, Leo Namalini, Charlie Kruger, number 70, but Bob St. Clair, Hall of Famer, R.C. Owens, great wide receiver. Y. Tittle, wide receiver, Hall of Famer. See the Giants here. Andy Robustelli, Hall of Famer. Sam Huff, Hall of Famer. Roosevelt Brown, Hall of Famer. Frank Gifford, Hall of Famer. So there were some good players on the team. Good players. Now, this got the picture here of the 49ers offense. There's Bob St. Clair and White Tail, the two Hall of Famers. There's a funny little story we got here. Ted Jacobson, the athletic ticket manager of the University of Utah, was closing up the safe, preparatory to locking up shop for the evening Thursday when a persistent banging at the door interrupted his chore. There was a frantic fan wanting to buy tickets for the 49er New York Giant game on Saturday. Ted mentioned that the office was closed, but when he learned his potential customer was from San Francisco, he started his sales pitch. Ted began by apologizing that the only seats left in the $5 category were around the 3-yard line, but the fan was overjoyed. Imagine that, he beamed. These will be the best seats I have ever had for a 49er game. Dan McGuire, the publicity chief for the San Francisco team, adds, 2 years ago, when the crush for season tickets began so great, we had to sell season tickets behind the goal line. We had gripes from the fans, but do you know it? This year we had requests from many of these fans for the same seats behind the goal line. To many professional football fans, and the college variety too, when they learn the ropes, the best seats in the house to watch a game are those high behind the goal lines. Well, yeah, no. No wonder our fan was happy to get a seat in the stadium for the game. You may recall that 2 years ago, when Kezar Stadium was sold out, 10,000 of our fans drove more than 400 miles round trip to Reno to see the game televised when they couldn't get into the stadium. That it drive 400 miles round trip, so I guess 200 miles at a drive just to see the game on TV. Boy, we've come a long way. Wow. And to show you how the Bay Area fans follow the 49ers, we'll have 7 newspaper writers from that area in the press box Saturday night, Dan added. Because the stadium rarely is filled at Utah, many fans never have seen a game from the bowl end of the stadium, and this game will give many fans that opportunity. Several high school coaches in the area will have their teams in the north end of the stadium where they can watch the offense and defensive teams react and maneuver. Roosevelt Greer, the gigantic defensive tackle of the New York Giants, knows the value of weight control. Yep, he blew a bonus. Greer was offered $1,000 if he'd report training camp weighing 280 pounds, but when Roosevelt reported he weighed in excess of 200, I think it was like 293 or 294, and he lost the bonus. His explanation: I was sick and it threw me off my diet schedule, he told Wellington Mara. Well, to me, usually when I'm sick, I don't eat, so I lose even more weight. So I'm not sure how much water that explanation of his or excuse holds. The thousands watching the gigantic pro players crash into each other may vow, not for me, but do you know the most dangerous position to play? Don Smith, the Giants publicist, adds, the players who get racked up the most are the offensive halfbacks. They come slashing through there and are jarred unmercifully. All right, let's see. We got, where are we at here? Here we go. With both teams girding for a final showdown before the National Football League season opens next Wednesday, as I said, both these teams really had great starts to the season. Just the Giants were able to finish it, and the 49ers weren't. The powerful Giants and the offensive-minded 49ers will clash in the Utah Stadium Saturday night. Kickoff time is 8 o'clock. And the thing is, it was like 8 o'clock. But one of the problems was out in New York, because there was like very small coverage of this game. It's a few hours even later out in New York. So that this game starts at 8 o'clock, I guess, in Salt Lake City, where it's like 10 or 11 o'clock in New York. And by the time it gets over with, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. And so there's like the following day, there's like no coverage whatsoever. Yeah, there was a small article in the New York Times for this game. Kickoff time is 8, and the interest in the game indicates a good crowd for the third pro football game in the stadium since World War II. There will be seats available all day Saturday, and the stadium gates will be open at 6:45. 3 bands from the 96th Infantry and Weber and Cedar high schools will provide pregame and halftime entertainment. There's no broadcast. There will be no TV or radio broadcast of the Giant 49er football game Saturday night. Wow. Whew. Imagine that nowadays. Nothing, no radio or TV. Wow. Giants, winners of the Eastern Division Championship and beaten in the thrilling sudden death playoff by the Colts, the National Football League Championship the year before, probably will enter the game ranked as a slight favorite. The Giants' gigantic defensive forward wall of Andy Roosevelt Greer, Andy Robustelli, Jim Ketkavich, and Dick Modulewski, plus the determined linebackers and the alert secondary, carries the edge. The Giants have not moved the ball offensively, even with the new man-in-motion attack, as well as coach Jim Howell hopes. 49ers, on the other hand, have been noted as a free scoring club, but one that has trouble holding down the opponent's offensive. And that makes for a natural, the all offense versus the defensive angle supposition. 49ers with Wyatt Tittle and John Brody hurling landed 4 receivers in the top 10 listings of the league last year, and the number 4 receiver for San Francisco is ahead of the Giants' leading pass catcher. The 49ers also led the league in passing efficiency. Giants were the top team defensively last year, and they'll be the top defensively team in 1959 as well, too. And the defensive platoon did as much as the offensive group in winning the Eastern Division laurels. Coach Red Hickey of the 49ers, making his first start as a head coach in professional football, has attempted to beef up his defensive men, and the Giants may offer a severe test. The Giants have offensive stars, too, in Frank Gifford. All right, let's go to the next page here. All right, powerful Giants in Utah Stadium. Here's the Giants starting lineup. You got Morrison, you got Alex Webster, Charlie Connolly, Frank Gifford, Kyle Rote, Roosevelt Brown. You got Frank Whitetecker right there, Bob Schnelker. You got Uso. So, where are we at here? All right. So the Giants have Frank Gifford, Alex Webster, and Joe Morrison. There you go. Back here. Joe Morrison, Alex Webster, Frank Gifford over here. Brilliance of the 49ers is the Jet Perry, Hugh the King McElhaney, R.C. Owens, and Dickie Mogul. And the 49ers have some defenders on the size of the Giants, and Bob St. Clair, who's like 6'8", Hall of Fame offensive lineman, Leo Namalini, Ed Hinkie, Charlie Kruger, and Henry Schmidt. Preseason injuries have forced both coaches to juggle their plans. Giants will not be able to use Phil King, alternate fullback, and may not have the services of Mel Triplett, the big fullback. However, halfback Alex Webster at 225 pounds will sub at the plunging back spot with rookie Joe Morrison moving into the Webster spot. 49ers may be forced to use a couple of stars sparingly too. And also the Giants in the third quarter, reading the New York Times article, Sam Huff would get injured in the third quarter and he'd be helped off the field and he would not return to this game. Jim Pace, who started as a halfback, did not make the trip to Utah. He has a knee injury. Hugh, the King Hall of Famer, McElhaney, has bruised ribs, and Perry is limping with a sprain. But with the pros eager to close out the preseason slate with a good showing to boost in league openers next week, both coaches may go for broke to win. Intermountain fans have 2 stars in particular to watch in R.C. Owens, he of the alley-oop pass, who hails from College of Idaho, And Lee Grosscup, who got drafted in the first round of the 1959 draft by the Giants, was Utah's All-American quarterback of 1957 and 58. You can see why the Giants drafted him. He was an All-American quarterback at Utah. I mean, he was not super spectacular in the pros. He was, he was a backup, but he was very good in college. Owen may get the starting call at flanker back instead of McElhaney, but Grosscup is down the list, number 4 among the Giant quarterbacks. The Giants have a ton of quarterbacks. They traded for George Shaw from the Colts this year. They have Charlie Connolly. They drafted Don Heinrich in 1954 draft, and they drafted Lee Grosscup. So they got at least four quarterbacks. And not only in that, Frank Gifford was offered the chance to play quarterback as well. So he started then the first week of the season, the Giants played against the Philadelphia Eagles, and Frank Gifford started the game in the first quarter at the quarterback position. So the Giants got a ton of quarterbacks. Not an unbelievable, amazing of good quality quarterback depth, but they had a lot of quarterbacks. Unlike what you see here with the 49ers. The 49ers having Brody and Y.A. Tittle. I mean, and then you have like the Pittsburgh Steelers who had Bobby Lane and Len Dawson. Then you got the Philadelphia Eagles who had Norm Van Brocklin and Sonny Jurgensen, 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Like, my goodness. Both coaches are experimenting with their offensive wrinkles this season, and fans can expect to see more long gains and brilliant passes, with the offensive shifts putting more pressure on the defense. The game is co-sponsored by Bleacher Quarterbacks and the Salt Lake Tribune, which is this paper that we're reading it from. Let's see, is that it for here? That's about what that looks like. So let's go now to the Ogden Standard Examiner. Oh, yeah, I wouldn't fool you. So the September 19th, 1959 edition of the Ogden Standard Examiner. All right, here we go. Utah Field, scene of grid event. Oh, so we have to refresh. Refresh. Exciting. Inviting to me. So fresh. The Giants and the 49ers wind up their preseason exhibition schedule here tonight, with players from both squads battling to survive final roster cuts. The contest, scheduled in the 30,000 University of Utah Stadium, officially opens the 1959 football season here. The game will start at 8 o'clock. The weatherman has forecast cloudy skies and cool weather with a chance of some rain. Ooh. And the wind out of the south-southwest at 8 miles per hour. And the barometer on the rise. Coach Jim Lee Howe's defending champions of the Eastern Division of the National Football League completed a week of workouts here yesterday. The 49ers worked out at Redwood City, California, and arrived in Utah yesterday. The Giants need to cut just 2 players from the squad to reach the 36-man player limit Tuesday. I mean, it's great. 36-man, 36. We got 53 nowadays. 17 more players nowadays than they did back then. 17. That's almost an entire offense and defense of extra players that we got nowadays. However, if Bob Reifsnyder, the Navy tackle cut by the Baltimore Colts, makes the grade with the Giants on a tryout basis, that means 3 have to be cut. Veteran Charlie Connolly, who won't be cut, is expected to start at quarterback for the Giants, although former University of Utah passing star Lee Grosscup, a top draft choice for the Giants, also will see some action before the home fans. Y.A. Tittle, who would finish his career with the New York Giants, played there from 61 to 64, is scheduled to start at quarterback for the 49ers. Giant fullback Mel Triplett and 49er halfback Jim Pace are on the ailing list and won't see action tonight. The game is sponsored once again by Salt Lake Tribune and the Bleacher Quarterbacks. I think, is that it? Yep. I think that might be it. All right, so we're going to start off here with the Salt Lake Tribune. All right, so we're going to go to the September 20th, 1959 edition of the Salt Lake Tribune. Here's the screen. There's not, I don't have an article here, I don't think at all from New York, because it was not much coverage. Here's a nice little picture here. Oh, once again, we got to refresh. All right, here we go. Giants gun down aerial-minded 49ers 17-13. Nice picture. I like this. But look at he's diving here, right? Diving tackle. He's diving, going all out. These guys, you know what I mean? Here's Wyatt Tittle in the background. What do we got going on here? Outstretched arms of the New York Giants tacklers just missed reaching the churning legs of Dick Mogul. Scat back. For the 49ers, Mogul was nailed by a crunching tackle put on by Dick Nolan, number 25. Right here. And Sam Huff, number 70. I guess this is Sam Huff right here. Huff was all over the field making trouble for the 49ers before he was injured in the third period, as I mentioned. All right, Patton shines for winners. Defensive-minded New York Giants called on Jimmy Patton, the ace of the Interceptor Squadron, to shoot down the aerial-minded 49ers 17-13 in the National Football League exhibition Saturday night at University Stadium that had the crowd of 18,496 tingling until the final gun sounded, with the Californians still throwing bombs into the winner's end zone. Patton, who led the league last year in grabbing enemy aerials. Now we'll see right here. I mean, you say right, the 49ers had 19 first downs. Giants only had 13. 110 rushing yards, 117 for the Giants, at 167 passing yards, 144. They were 18 out of 36. Giants were 11 out of 17. Passes intercepted by 49ers had 2. Giants picked off 1, apparently. Yards. But I tell you, it is amazing, though. As I go through these games, is not very often is there a ton of penalties called. Not often. I mean, right here, 30 total yards. And the Giants apparently lost 3 fumbles, though. 30 total yards of penalties. Patton, who led the league last year in grabbing enemy aerials, turned the tide in favor of the favored Giants with a brilliant 63-yard return of an intercepted pass in the third quarter. 5'10" Patton, hippity-hopping all over the field like a bunny pursued by a pack of hounds, plucked a Wyatt Tittle pass on the Giant 36. He skipped and hopped as he found friendly blockers coming to his aid for 63 yards before R.C. Owens snagged him on the 1-yard line. That was a big thrill of a great football show. It also meant the ball game for the Eastern Division champions, who won the title on their defense a year ago. It was the stonewall defense of the Giants line that thwarted the 49ers when they had a 1st and 3 situation early in the fourth period. And it was the defense that stopped the aerial circus in its race against the clock as the game neared the end. It was a ding-dong game. Okay. All the way with the 49ers going ahead 3-0, where the Giants came back to knot it at 3-all on a first quarter field goal. Giants got the winning margin on a touchdown in the second period, while the 49ers had to settle for a field goal. Both teams scored touchdowns in the third period and went scoreless in the fourth. Despite showers and rain squalls that cut the crowd before the game, the third post-war professional game in the University Stadium was played in near-perfect football weather. The field was pretty dry, and there wasn't too much chill and no rain in the air. Both sides showed casualties from the bruising struggle, with the Giants linebacker Sam Huff hospitalized with a concussion and several other stars jarred and limping. And it was that type of ball game, with the Giants having an extra offensive punch and a tougher defense when it counted. Both defenses had to give ground to the offensive units in the first quarter, as the 49ers and then the Giants marched for long drives the first time each team had the ball. The 49ers drove 72 yards in 14 plays, with Tommy Davis kicking a 17-yard field goal to draw first blood for the 49ers. But the Giants went even better, moved 88 yards in 10 plays, with Pat Summerall booting a 25-yard three-pointer that left the score tied at the end of the first quarter. The momentum gained in the field goal drive carried over late in the first period, and the Giants, after receiving a punt, pounded 72 yards in 5 plays, with Charlie Connolly passing the Kyle Rowe for 32 yards and to Frank Gifford for a 28-yard touchdown play. Summerall kicked the extra point after Gifford bounded over. Oh, is this? Yep, here we go. There's Charlie Connolly handed the ball off. Oh, no. Oh, wait. What's he doing here? Or maybe he faked it. But you see some good line play right there, right? Charlie Connolly spotted by Arrow. Oh, up here, he fakes the handoff. Looks like he got the ball. Looks like he's going to hand the ball off, but he fakes it. Pulls it back in. But he's just setting up a pass play for the Giants in the lower picture. He dashes back to give his receivers time to get downfield, while his forward wall protects him from 49ers Ed Henke, Carl Rubke, and Frank Morsey. I'll say Moors. There we go. Got a little bit more here. Once again, there's Sam Huff. Once again, who's all over the freaking field. Wow, there you go. Look at that, huh? Nice crowd. Nice looking crowd. Part of the crowd of 18,000 at the professional football game at Ute Stadium gets big thrill from the pros. All right, here we go. Oh, we got some guys being injured there. All right. Dick Mogul, quick halfback of the 49ers, cuts through a hole in the Giants' defense, with Ted Connolly, 64, laying a good block on Lyndon Crow, 41, right there. That's a good block right there, baby. I mean, look, the dude is like vertical or horizontal, I'm sorry. And just flying through the air, laying a block out. I mean, these guys gave it their freaking all back then. I mean, you don't see this stuff nowadays. Guy flying through the air, laying fur. You very rarely ever see an offensive lineman laying on the ground nowadays. But Giants linebacker Sam Huff, the great middle linebacker of the Giants, is coming across fast, while 49er Bruce Bosley, number 77, is coming up at the rear. All right, so he's coming up the rear. But here's Sam Huff. So we got here Alex Webster. Alex Webster, fullback for the Giants, holds on to his bruised, possibly broken ribs as the New York trainer looks him over. Webster was hurt early in the game, forcing Don Chandler to take over the spot. Wow. Don Chandler was the Giants' punter. Frank Gifford, great New York Giants halfback, takes a pass from Charlie Connolly for the first Giants score. That's the score they're talking about right there. All right. Let's see. Well, that happened a lot. I mean, back then, they had to put their stars in there. A lot of times the stars got injured. Stuff like that doesn't really happen too often anymore. All right, here we go. A great return of an intercepted pass by Eddie Dove gave the 49ers a chance to get back into the game. Dove plucked a Gifford pass deep into 49er territory, and the former Colorado U ace moved back to the Giant 29. But penalties stymied both the offense and defense, and on third down, Tommy Davis blasted a 37-yard field goal to cut the Giants' lead to 10-6 at the halftime. Dove again started the 49ers rolling as he returned a punt 23 yards to the Giant 42 as the third period opened. Tittle unlimbered and passed to Frank Connor for 14 yards and to J.C. Owens for 11. J.D. Smith rode over the Giant wave using his stomach for a surfboard for the touchdown from 2 yards out. Wow. Davis kicked the extra point, and San Francisco led for the last time 13-10. It appeared the 49ers were in the process of fashioning an upset at this time. But Giants gambled on a 4th and 1 on the 49ers' 43-yard line, and Gifford was stopped for a loss. Patton ended the San Francisco hopes, however, when he cut in ahead of an intended receiver and picked off a long Tittle pass like a ripe peach, and like an errant schoolboy fleeing the wrath of the farmer whose peach tree he had spoiled. Patton took off. He jockeyed his blockers from one side of the field to the other before Owens nailed him on the one. Joe Morrison boomed over for the winning margin. Although the fourth period was scoreless, it was not without its thrills. The 49ers drove from their 20 to the Giants' 3, with Tittle's eating up the yardage. A great pass to Connor on the New York 3 was the final big threat, but the 49ers hit the Giant line 3 times for a net 6-yard loss, and the 4th down pass was out of bounds. Giants took over, and with Lee Grosscup directing the attack, picked up 2 first downs. But Grosscup overthrew Gifford in the clear, tossed a mite too high for Morrison, and then was smeared for a 10-yard loss to kill the momentum. That forced the Giants to punt and let the 49ers turn on their offensive show again. Back came the 49ers. Tittle passed to Billy Wilson for 23 yards, to J.C. Owens for 7, and to Smith for 6 to move to the Giants' 40-yard line. But Tittle was throwing against the clock as well as the Giant pass defense. Only 2 minutes remained when San Francisco started to move, and every successful play dissipated a few of the remaining seconds on the clock. He threw 7 straight strikes, but each time the alert Giant secondary was all over the receivers, and even the bread and butter alley-oop to Owens couldn't come through as the game ended. I mean, that's what the 49ers were known for, the old alley-oop. Tittle throw the ball up high, Owens go in the end zone and just out-leap the opponent and come down with the ball. It happened many a time, but apparently they tried it in this game. It just did not happen. All right, so that was the Salt Lake Tribune. So let's go to the San Francisco Examiner, the September 20th, 1959 edition of the San Francisco Examiner. All right, share screen. San Francisco treat. San Francisco Examiner. Where are we at here? All right. September 20th, 1959. San Francisco Examiner. Oh. No, that's not this game. Let's refresh this once again. There we go. 49er bid fails. New York wins 17-13. There were major strides in the right direction, but the result was the same as the San Francisco 49ers dropped their exhibition season wind-up to the New York Giants 17-13 here tonight. A brilliant 63-yard interception run back by the New York secondary defensive ace, Jimmy Patton, Late in the third period was the blow that doomed the San Franciscans to their fourth preseason loss in 6 starts. By the time the scattered 49ers caught up with a zigzagging pattern, he was at the San Francisco 1-yard line, and it was easy for rookie Joe Morrison to storm over for the go-ahead points, which the Eastern Champions defense grimly preserved through a scoreless fourth quarter. 49ers, who open their National Football League campaign next Sunday against Buck Shaw's Philadelphia Eagles at Kezar Stadium, made a determined bid to even off their exhibition record with a fourth quarter drive. But New York's vaunted defenders rose to the occasion after the 49ers had pushed their way to within 3 yards of the Giants' goal line with 4 downs to work on. But they never made the promised land, although it was close when Y.A. Tittle's 4th down, not W.A., although it's Y.A., but a 4th down pass to R.C. Owens connected inches away from the end zone's right sideline. Both sides played under severe personal handicap. The 49ers didn't get to use Joe Perry, Hall of Famer, at all, and Hugh McElhaney, Hall of Famer, was in the action for only one play, the last play. That was it. Giants, who had their first-line fullbacks, Mel Triplett and Phil King, on the sideline before the opening kickoff, lost their replacement, Alex Webster, early in the going with possible cracked ribs. Ooh. Even more damaging was the departure of their mighty linebacker, Sam Huff, in the third quarter with a concussion. It was the first time in 4 years that the rugged West Virginian had missed a minute of play. Wow. Whew. That's amazing. And Sam Huff did not miss much time at all. Did not miss much time. The performance of the 49ers seemed heartening to the 49er press box observers who had witnessed last week's 48-14 swamping at Los Angeles. But head coach Red Hickey stormed and fumed in the dressing room. We just don't have enough mean people on this team. There are too many nice boys. He berated the club. They have to be killed before they'll fight back. Hickey was particularly disappointed in the 49ers' first half production, although the score was only 10-6 in favor of the Giants. Certainly, fullback J.D. All right, let's go to move up ahead here in the action. Hopefully this is the right page. Okay, J.D. Smith, who with Tittle played the entire distance. Now they got their Hall of Fame quarterback, the final preseason game, playing the entire game. How crazy is that? That the final preseason game. You don't even see starters in there, the final preseason game anymore. Smith was the workhorse of the night as he carried the mail 22 times and gained 74 yards for a 3.4-yard average. A running back nowadays, that's not, carrying the ball 22 times in a preseason game. Although Smith was not maybe the starter or not like that, but that's just a crazy number of times for somebody to carry the ball. In all manner of advancing, the 49ers had a set 277 and 261 edge, but still managed to get only one TD out of it because they lacked the big punch. Maybe that's what Hickey was referring to when he said they're not mean enough. Along with Smith, other 49ers standouts were Ed Hinkey, a giant on defense, Eddie Dove, who turned in San Francisco's lone interception of the 6-game exhibition season and fashioned a 43-yard run back, which led to the second Tommy Davis field goal. And Davis, who just about established himself as the regular season toe with 2 for 2 in the field goal department and a 44-plus punting average. Davis's 3-pointers from 17 and 36 yards represented all the 49ers scoring in the first half. His conversion following Smith's yard TD plunge gave the 49ers a temporary 13-10 lead. They blew when Patton made his lengthy return with the Tittle pass that fell far short of the intended receiver, Clyde Connor. Tough for the 49ers to handle were Charlie Connolly, Giants' non-aging quarterback, who actually was 38 that year. who completed 8 of 12 passes, one to Frank Gifford. Frank Gifford from 29 yards and a touchdown. To the 49ers' credit, that was one of the few times Gifford was able to do any real damage. The 49ers got almost all the breaks in the first half, and they still trailed 10-6. San Francisco scored first and last during the first two periods, with rookie Tommy Davis's unerring toe splitting the uprights on 17 and 36-yard field goals. The first following a legitimate post-kickoff march, which carried from the 49ers 28 to the Giants 10. The second tally, just 2 seconds before the intermission, was heaven sent. The sequence began when alert Eddie Dove picked off one of the ancient Charlie Connolly passes for the first interception recorded by the 49ers during exhibition season. Wow. Went 6 games before they finally picked off a pass. Wow. That's pretty bad. Better yet, Speedy Eddie from Colorado raced back 43 yards to the New York 30. Lady Luck tapped the San Francisco 49ers on the shoulder when Tittle's first down end zone toss aimed at Fred Dugan was grabbed off by New York's Lyndon Crow. It didn't count because the Giants were guilty of defensive holding and the 49ers got to keep the ball. Tittle made 9 when he had to run because all receivers were covered. Then Davis booted his second three-pointer out of John Brody's hold. In between Davis's successful toe shots, it was all Giants. Summerall's 22-yard field goal squared off Davis's first effort, and early in the second period, the Giants waltzed to the first half's only TD. It was unique in that of the 5 plays in New York's 72-yard drive, 2 lost ground. Actually, the Giants covered 78 yards in 3 maneuvers. One was Gifford's 17-yard sprint, the second a Connolly to Rote pass good for 32, and the finisher a 29-yard scoring shot on which Connolly suckered Abe Woodson out of the position with a fake whip before lofting the ball over going up, way up. Oh, my goodness. Over the 49ers defender's head to Gifford. The versatile veteran made an over-the-shoulder catch on the 5 and loped the rest of the way. Summerall converted, and not too long after, the Giants looked to be on their way to another one. But Don Chandler, who backed up Alex Webster, who had to be rushed in at fullback when Alex Webster was incapacitated by an early Leo Namalini tackle, fumbled at the 49er 26. Carl Rupke recovered for the 49ers, and then the San Francisco's proceeded to throw away 2 golden opportunities. One followed Woodson's recovery of Patton's punt fumble on the Giant 35. San Francisco lost the ball in downs on the New York 6 when Rosie Greer smothered Tittle's 4th down pass attempt. The second, developed by Dave Baker's recovery of Gifford's bobble on the New York 39, died when Jim Patton intercepted Tittle's 2nd down pass. 49ers came out of steaming in the second half. They pushed immediately to a touchdown after Dove's fine 23-yard punt return. With Tittle's passing taking on sharpness, they moved the distance in 9 plays. The big one was Y.A. Tittle's down the middle 12-yard shot to Owens, which planted the ball on the 2. Smith crashed a big pileup at right guard to go in from there, and Davis made it 13-10 for the 49ers. 49ers got another big break during this phase of the going when Sam Huff, the Giants' brilliant all-pro linebacker, was hurt and had to be carried off the field on a stretcher. Must have been a heck of a concussion. There was a little rhyme or reason to prayerful passing as this stage of the game, but the 49ers risked it and paid dearly when Pat intercepted Tittle's high fly at Connor and made a spectacular weaving 63-yard return, which missed by a couple of feet of putting him in the end zone. Owens' momentary saving tackle was nullified one play later when Morrison cracked over his own right guard to put the Giants ahead again. A 49er drive shortly thereafter was stopped inches short of the goal line by the Giants' renowned defense. A relentless San Francisco drive carried 75 yards, and all the world looked rosy as the 49ers set up with a first down on the Giants' 3-yard line. It looked even better when Smith pushed for 2 on the first play, down to the 1. but there was hard fiber in the Giant defense as Mogul was tossed for no gain and Smith was flattened with a 4-yard loss. Tittle's fourth down selection was a pass to Owens. It connected, but RC was flying across the restraining line when he made the leaping catch, and it was ruled no good. That more than balanced off the good fortune the 49ers were blessed with during the early going. And it was the cork on the bottle as far as the 49ers were concerned, although the fans were kept on the edge of their seats right until the final play. Whoops, my bad. Hold on. I do apologize. And it was the cork in the bottle as far as the 49ers were concerned, although the fans were kept on the edge of their seats right until the final play, a long Tittle to McElhaney pass that was jostled out of Hughes' hands in the end zone by Dick Nolan. Interestingly, though, also Dick Nolan will also go on to coach the 49ers and take them to the playoffs 3 straight years. One casualty reported among the 49ers was Jerry Mertens. He banged into a Giant receiver and received a slight concussion. However, Dr. Jim O'Connor said he would be okay, would be aboard the team plane tomorrow when it heads for home shortly after noon. We got, and here's the scoring. Very cool. Scoring drives. Very, very cool. Which is very cool for a following of the scoring sequences in tonight's 49er Giant NFL exhibition game. So the first quarter, 49ers scored a field goal, and this was the scoring drive right here. Then the Giants went 88 yards in 10 plays. Here it is right here. They tied it up. Ended the first period 3-3. Then the Giants went 72 yards in 5 plays to make it 10-3. Then the 49ers went 30 yards in 3 plays after the interception to make it 10-6. Then the 49ers scored in the third period to make it 13-10. Then Patton intercepted the pass, and Morrison went over for 1 yard and make it 17-13. Is that it? Oh, there we go. We got some better stats here. Here's the summary. Here's the lineups who played. All right. 49ers had 19 first downs. The Giants only had 13. 49ers out-yarded them a little bit. Giants only had 44 offensive plays. The 49ers had 77. Wow. Jeez. Giants had 3 fumbles and lost every one of them. So kind of tough to win that way. All right, so now we got the final one is the San Francisco Chronicle. So we're going to go to September 20th, 1959 edition of the San Francisco Chronicle. Rattle this off fast there. San Francisco Chronicle. All right, here we go. Giants. Oh, no, it's baseball. This is one of the problems was especially, I'm looking for articles and stuff like that. And I go to like California newspapers and I type in the word Giants. Well, it pops up all kinds of articles, but the only problem is this is baseball season. So the San Francisco Giants, all their articles popped up. So, but the 49ers wound up 20 yards short and a few seconds late of the victory tonight, but regained some measure of respectability while losing to the Giants 17-13 in the final NFL exhibition for both teams. Wyatt Till, the famed clock fighter, moved his troops from his own 17 to the Giant 20 in the waning moments and then missed one of 3 tough shots for the TD in the last 20 seconds. The unofficial field clock still showed 7 seconds remaining, and Till, with 4th and 10, was preparing to fire the last bullet in his gun when the game ended officially. Wow. The timer's gun ended San Francisco's exhibition record at 2-4 against 3-3 for the Giants. Let me see here. That's on another page. Let's try this here. That's not this game. Oh, there we go. Still, the San Franciscans, who looked miserable in the 48-14 loss to the Rams last week and not too good in the first half tonight, were pouring the muscle over the last 30 minutes in an attempt to save the game. It was climaxed by the final drive from the New York 33 with only 46 seconds showing on the unofficial clock and 4th and 2 staring at Tiddly. He kept the drive alive by passing to Fred Dugan for 12. Now, with 20 seconds left, Wyatt Till tried the alley-ooper to Owens, but the New York's Dick Lynch knocked it down with a desperate hand. 16 seconds remaining. Tittle found Owens near the goal line, but officials ruled it was an out-of-bounds catch. Hugh, the King McElhaney, suffering from bruised ribs, was sent into the game for the first time in the final 10 seconds. He got one hand on Tittle's pass in the end zone, but couldn't hold the ball. The timer's gun wiped out whatever plan Tittle had in mind as 18,496 fans filed out of University of Utah Stadium. They filed out, no doubt, somewhat dazed by the finish. Although the San Franciscans trailed only 10-6 on the scoreboard at the half, they did not look good through the stretch. They were outgained 207 yards to 102 and lucked out of disaster by virtue of fumble recoveries. Carl Rupke, Abe Woodson, and Dave Baker picked off Giant bobbles to avert what might have been a disaster. So the Giants lost 3 fumbles. There's a different story in the second half as the San Francisco's came alive. J.D. Smith, running like a bull behind subtly inspired blockers, brought hope from the small San Francisco continued that the 49ers might whip a few NFL teams after it had appeared that they might feel one of the worst teams in their 14-year history. New York Sam Huff, heart of the Giants' defense at middle linebacker, was carried from the field on a stretcher in the third quarter. He suffered a concussion and was kept overnight in the Latter-day Saints hospital. The Giants also lost halfback Alex Webster early in the game with what may be broken ribs. Wow. For San Francisco, fullback Joe Perry and linebacker Mike Dukes did not play because of injuries, and halfback Jim Pace was left in San Francisco with what may be an injured knee cartilage. Defensive back Jerry Mertens suffered a slight concussion but should be okay next week. Anything else? Oops. After the game, Coach Red Hickey said, "We just don't have enough mean people. The other side has to half kill them before they will wake up and play. We have too many nice boys. I made no changes at the half. The boys just decided to do a little tackling." Because of their second half surge, the San Francisco's wind up with the total yardage bulge, 277 to 261. So basically, the Giants didn't do a whole heck of a lot of anything in the second half. Smith, the night's big hero, went for 74 yards and 22 carries until hit 17 passes and 35 attempts for 160 yards. And then they got once again the scoring summary right there. There was no. This is Washington State here against Cal. Teams look a little bit different than they do nowadays, don't they? This guy back over here doesn't even have a face mask. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. So that wound up, and once again, it was an exhibition. But, it was disappointing for the 49ers. They were only 2-4, but I said, but a little bit more than halfway through the season, they were actually 6-1, and they were first place by 2 full games. I mean, they have a good team. One of the problems, as I said in one of those articles, was their defense. At times, their defense was not super spectacular. Usually, they had always had a good enough offense they could move the ball and score some points, but their defense from time to time would wind up letting them down. But except for the Giants, I mean, once again, they won this game. They finished their exhibition record at 3-3, and and they were ready to rock and roll for the regular season where they would finish with a record of 10-2. But not for the Giants, because they were unlike the 49ers, who the 49ers were in Kezar Stadium. There was no baseball team there. 49ers played at Kezar Stadium, and they played away. I mean, the Giants didn't play at Yankee Stadium because of the Yankees until October 18th, 1959. So the Giants didn't step in. Basically, it was like 2 full months between the preseason and the regular season before the Giants even got to play a home game at Yankee Stadium. But things worked out well for them. Unfortunately, once again, Giants finished with the best defense, the best record, but when they got to the championship game, none of that really mattered. So that's the way it was on this date, September 19th, 1959, as the New York Giants played the San Francisco 49ers at Salt Lake City, Utah, at what's a Ute? At Ute Stadium in pro football, first 50 years. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.